Hey, welcome back to Hot Rods and Honey. And we're gonna work on the rear end today. I've got the rear end put back together. I've gotta still do the brakes, but the rear end and the differential cover are on, cleaned up, and we're gonna just mount it onto the top of the leaf springs. We don't have the leaf spring mounting plate, but where the U-bolts go into. But we'll get as far as we can for now. Things are on back order on Amazon, and I tried to cancel that order and reorder from Speedway, but Amazon wouldn't let me cancel the order because it's delayed in shipping. So I guess I'm gonna receive that part from Amazon and then send it back, because I'm gonna place an order with Speedway for their leaf spring U-bolt mount plate. So let's get started here. This is a Ford Explorer 8.8 rear end, and I got it for a good price. So I am going to use that instead of the 51, the rear end that came out of the 51 pickup. This is beefier. It's got a bigger, certainly bigger housing. Gears are 355. There are some pieces I've got to trim off of here that I don't really need. And probably some that I've got to reconfigure. So, yeah, it's what I wasn't expecting was to get something with disc brakes in the rear end. So that's a plus. All right, we'll get back to it now. I painted the rear end, or at least the housing and the dust covers, or the heat shields. Cleaned them up with a power washer, scraped them, and wire brushed, and then painted it with Ospro to neutralize the rust, and then put the first coat of POR 15 over it, and then to top coat the POR 15 because it is sensitive to ultraviolet light. I used some Rust-Oleum engine paint and painted up everything. So I've got the rotors. Still have to clean up the surfaces, but I use some Ospro on them as well, and that neutralized the rust. I didn't do the backside, but I've got to clean up the surface. I think these rotors are still pretty good, so I'm gonna try to use them. The calipers, I have to disassemble. The brake pads may be okay to use. I mean, they're not worn, but I just have to clean off the surfaces, clean up all the rust and crap off of them, and then hopefully push the piston back in with a C-clamp, and hopefully I don't know a good way to check to see if these seals leak or not, or if the piston is stuck. But I guess I'll be able to tell when I get the C-clamp on them. Same deal here with this one. This C-clamp is retracted a little bit, but it still can go back, and I can check to see if it's hung up or not, or froze. The other rotor, yeah, it just has surface rust. So I think these are still okay to use. If I can't get them cleaned up well enough, I may have to take them down to the machine shop and just have them turn the discs and get them straightened out. So anyway, so where we're at is I measured to center and to make equal lengths from the leaf spring out to the hub. So that should center the wheel equally on the left and right side within the wheel well. So we'll do that. The perches have to be welded. And so for now, I'm gonna put the rear end, set them, and get the spacing right, left to right. And then we have to get the pinion angle set up, but I don't have the engine in the truck yet. And we'll have to wait to see what kind of angle that the engine is at, because the angle for the pinion angle has to be basically the same, so that we don't have wobbling of the drive shaft, so that it kind of keeps the drive shaft not balanced, but when it's turning, you're going to have opposing forces. So just say the engine is at just say it's at a 5-degree angle. The best thing to do with this rear end then is to have it at a 5-degree angle. So then the drive shaft will connect those two angles, and it's like an opposing force. So you're not going to get the drive shaft out of balance. Assuming that it's been balanced perfectly at the shop. So we still do have to have a drive shaft made, but that's going to be almost last after the engine and transmission are in place, and the rear end in place, so that we can get an accurate distance length of the drive shaft. So, all right, let me get the jack set up. I guess what I'll do is maybe try to lift each one of these leaves. Actually, what I should do is drop the back end of the truck down. I've got these jack stands pretty much maxed out. So I'll get the jack underneath the frame, and then lower these two jack stands, so that when I do try to raise the rear end up, I'm not going to be struggling as much. I won't have to raise it as high. So that's kind of what we're going to work on right now. I originally thought I was going to use the old rear end from the 51 pickup, and I made these U-bolts up and mounting plate. That would have worked for that rear end, but because this rear end is it's a Ford out of a Ford Explorer, so it's a Ford 8.8 rear end, and the housing tube diameter is 3¼ inches. So the original 51 rear end was narrower, closer to 2½ inches, I believe. So I had to buy new U-bolts, and I got the extra long, so that if we need to add some more lifting plates, or actually lowering plates, we would put those underneath this perch, and then that would effectively lower the truck down, and but we'll have to see how things look with the just by flipping the rear end from the mount from the bottom side of the leaves to the top side. So that should give us I think I calculated about 6 inches or 5 inches, so we'll see how much we can get, and we'll determine if we have to add some more plates below this mount or not. It's amazing how much space you can gain back by putting parts back onto the vehicle. So we've got everything, nothing is tightened down, nothing is welded. These will have to be welded onto the perch after we get the angle straightened out. But I just wanted to get a rough idea of the stance, and I think it's going to be kind of cool. We are close to about the ride height unloaded. When we get loaded, these springs are going to flex up, so we're going to drop the body and frame a little bit further, maybe an inch, who knows. Certainly the front end's going to drop because the engine's got to go in yet. And so that'll be, 400 pounds sitting there. So the overall height is going to drop. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. So originally at the running board mounts, they were about 13 inches. Right now we are at 9 inches on that one. 9.5 there. So if they're true, and if the truck drops equally front and back, it's probably going to drop more in the front. So we're going to have just a little bit of a rake, which is what I want. So we have to wait for these bottom mounting plates, and like I said, Amazon has not shipped, and it says the shipment is delayed. I can't cancel the order, but I'm going to go ahead and order the mounting plate from Speedway Motors, because it also, besides having the correct mount, there's going to be a stud or a tube that's going to be sticking out, and can use that for mounting the shock. Or I can use this bracket, which was used for the stabilizer bar that went side to side. So I can use this as a mounting bracket, and the shock can come up. I'm going to put a crossbar here on the step notches, and so we can mount a shock from down yonder up to someplace on this crossbar. And that crossbar is down there. And I haven't measured it, but it's a beefy bar. It's like 3/4 by 2 inch. So I think that will work. So that's kind of the plan for now. I had my markings on the drive on the housing, and I tried to transfer those onto this piece of tape. So the center of the leaf is going to be lined up with that center when I go ahead and weld these perches on. Same deal there. So I've got equal distance on both sides from these reference points. So assuming that these leaves are exactly, length from center to the leaf and length from the center to that leaf, I'm assuming that they are equal. Now this drive shaft is not symmetrical, and the shaft is not coming out directly from the center. The center line from side to side is roughly here, but the shaft comes out at a slight angle, and that's fine. So yeah, so that's where we're at. I think I'm going to go ahead and start working on these calipers, get these rotors cleaned up, because I can't do anything else on the rear end right now since I don't have all the parts. So let's continue on and keep going. So I got the rotors cleaned up somewhat. I used a flat disc sander on them to get the surface rust off and cleaned up. I'll hit them with brake cleaner, and I'll probably power wash them just to get all the grit out of the inside here. But yeah, these are reusable. I'm happy about that. I don't have to spend more money on that. As far as these back caliper brakes, the shoes look like they're okay. They're really fine. So we'll just clean them up with a little bit of soap and a wire brush just to knock all the crud off. So they're fine. And I'm hoping that these calipers aren't frozen, or I hope that they're still usable. I think they are. I don't see any evidence that they were leaking. I just squeezed the C-clamp and squirted some juice out from this. So let me see. So the way you compress these guys, put a C-clamp in there and crank it in. And so there's brake fluid in there already. So, and it's turning freely. The piston is not hung up, and it looks like it's probably going to be fine. So that one's all the way in. I wish I could grab it and pull back out just to have it travel the full distance that it normally would travel. But I think we're going to clean these up and reuse them. I'll have to get new brake hose. And let me see what the status is of this. It is making a mess with brake fluid. And I'm trying to be careful not to get anything on any paint. So we're cranking it in. And it's moving freely. Because they look like they're relatively new brake pads. The piston wasn't really in very far extended out, so we didn't have to push it in very far. But I think these are going to be fine. It's a matter of cleaning them up. I'm not going to rebuild the pistons. If If I'd have to do that, I would just go ahead and buy new calipers. But this is from somewhere either 97, 98, 99, or 2000 Ford Explorer. And I don't know how long it's been sitting in the junkyard, but I'm hoping that these seals are gonna be okay. Again, we'll replace this hose. It's got a banjo fitting on it, and then, well, actually the hose doesn't look that bad, but I'm going to replace them anyway. And that should take care of these brakes. So let me clean them up and clean up these pads, and we can mount them then back on onto the caliper bracket and call it done. Let's see, we got all the hardware we need. Now the one thing about these brakes is they had a ABS brake system, and we're going to just delete that. So we're going to put a fitting on here of just a single. This is a Y right now. One went to the rear, to the sensor in the rear end, and so we're going to just go put a straight through like this side had. Also, these brakes have, and it's on the caliper mount. It's a provision for the emergency brake, and so I'm going to have to do a little bit of work there. It's a different type of fitting than the cable that was on the truck. These caliper or these brake fittings have a slot like so. Yep. But the cables that I have from the truck are different, so I don't know what I'm going to do there. Got to straighten out make sure we have emergency brakes, because that's not cool. When you need them, you need them. Okay, so let me go ahead and get these things cleaned up. Well, it's been a few days since I've been working on the truck. I've been busy doing stuff around my yard and house, and it's not been stuff I wanted to do. Let me show you what's been going on. Well, the one thing I've been working on is getting these bees fed, and I'm a little bit late. It's middle of November, and I should have put sugar water on these hives earlier because of the dearth in the late summer, early fall. They don't have anything to feed on, so they've got to rely on sugar water. And I've got some more hives up here, and I put this sugar water on yesterday, and that jar's half gone. These two, the bees haven't been feeding on it too much, but yep, so hopefully they'll get enough food for storage in the winter. I haven't taken any honey off of the hives, so I'm hoping that they'll be able to get to the honey that's stored in the box during the winter time. But anyway, yeah, we got some yard work to do. My wife's busy here cleaning up some of these gardens. But the stuff I've been dealing with in the past, actually 30 days, are these rocks and people smashing their cars into these rocks. So yesterday, spent time working on getting topsoil back in, the spots where the turf has been torn up, cleaned up all these big grass plants. But the thing that's been happening is people coming down around this corner, like this car, and speeders that are not making the turn. So they end up landing in these rocks, and the boulders always win. So these, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 pounds, whatever they are. But when cars hit them, they're going fast, and they typically push the rocks back. I don't know, in the past it's been 2 or 3 feet. This rock has been pushed back about 2 feet. It should be, the edge of it should be right here. So that's a couple feet. Get my buddy with his skid loader to move that rock back over so that we have closure of any possibility of a car getting through these rocks and jamming their car into our house. This rock is interesting. That rock had been, this guy used to be way up there, 25 feet away. And when Daryl hit it with I think it was a late model, maybe it was 2017 Volkswagen Jetta, that baby just rolled. So she was going quite fast, and she ended up on top of this rock. The car was just resting on 2 wheels, 2 wheels up, 2 wheels down. So it's just stupidity and carelessness. So that's what we're dealing with at my house. And every time a car comes around here, I hold my breath and hope that they're not gonna wipe out some more rocks, because it's a hassle dealing with insurance companies and getting everything put back the way it should be. My neighbor across the road had to do the same thing. It's not as critical there because he's on the inside of the turn, but we're on the outside of this sharp curve. So we're dealing with the county to get rumble strips or some kind of speed control for this road. This is probably the worst spot on this stretch of 1.5 mile road. So, yep, that's what we've been working on, and wasting my time doing this crap. Okay, so getting back to the main feature of the day, we got the truck turned around, put it in the garage, so that might be a little bit easier to do a first fit of the engine and figure out where motor mounts go. But I've been doing some sanding, getting some of this nasty rust, and seeing what's underneath this paint. So I'm going to continue with that. But the accomplishment that we've had is we got the rear end in, we've got the mounting plates in, and so now we know not exactly, but closer to what the stance is going to be. Let's see if we can kind of show you. And I think it's like 7 inches on this back mount. It's a little higher up front by about 1 inch. But once the engine goes in, that should bring that front down. I don't want to have a reverse rake in the stance. I don't want the front higher than the back. Either one at level or just slightly higher in the back. So we've got the brake calipers cleaned up and installed, and I think they're going to be just fine. I ordered new brake hoses from Rock Auto. They're supposed to be in the next couple days. The brakes seem to be just fine. Wheels fit good. So got the rear end filled up with gear oil. I need one more quart, and that's going to be coming. So I guess what I'd like to do is finish cleaning out some of the old stuff. So I got the heater almost all removed. I need a bracket to remove. I'm trying to get these windows removed. These are plastic. I got the vent windows, the glass out of them, and these tracks seem to be okay. So they're going to need to be cleaned up, painted, of course, when the whole truck gets painted. But I'm having a tough time getting these windows out, and also a tough time getting these handles removed. I can't get a tool back there in order to release them and pop them out. So that's holding in the whole window regulator. And I have brand new window regulators for both driver's side and passenger side. I'm going to be getting these gauges out, and I think I may go with gauges from speedhut.com. I saw some reviews on those gauges, and what I don't know is how they're going to work with the computer on the LS engine. So I'm going to be checking that out. I got the gas tank removed, and I could see condition of the back of the cab. When I was sanding, I could feel many places where they've got, been dented in. So I'm going to be using a hammer and dolly to straighten them out. There's another pretty good sized dent. So there's a bunch of that to do. This bottom corner is bondoed or fiberglass, so that's gonna get straightened out and removed. Maybe put in a new patch at that corner. The passenger side looks pretty good. There's minimal rust. I mean, there's some in the floor, in the horizontal part. But as far as that corner, it's not bad. There, I gotta make some cutouts, patches, cuts, patch. And then my plan is after I sand everything down on the exterior, take it outside, power wash it, scrub it down, and maybe use some of the rust treatment to neutralize this rust. This OSPO has been working well. I used that on the frame before I painted it, in the front and back, and I used it on this big rust patch, and it does neutralize the rust. So its chemical reaction just slows down the rust. So I'll probably use that on parts of the open rusted areas, like along this gutter that could stand to be done, and that is actually in really surprisingly good shape. So before any seam sealer goes in here or paint, use the OSPO, neutralize it, protect it. And so there'll be a lot of that, a lot of small areas. But the front end is looking good. I'm really happy about that. The reason I wanted to get an idea of where the engine mounts are going to be is because of this linkage for the steering. So my guess is, and what I've seen other guys with early 50s trucks is, well, and they didn't have a Mustang 2 front end, but they had to bring over this linkage, put in another universal joint here, and then run it up to the firewall where the steering column comes out. And then also mount a bracket somewhere on the frame that would come up, and it has a is it a Heim joint, or a joint that will let the linkage, here it is, this, is it a Heim joint? Steering shaft, rod, and kit. But the idea is that the steering column goes through this hole, and it will articulate depending on which, what angle you're at, and hold that the D shaft stable. So I'm gonna continue cleaning up the cab, getting it ready to take outside, scrub down, power wash it, and I may get the engine hoist and bring this guy over and do a dry fit. I did get, let's see, I did get this mount, LS mount from Speedway. I'm not sure if this mount's going to go this way, or if I flip the two sides, this perch will be set back a little bit. So that is one thing I don't know. And I don't have the transmission ready yet. It's stuck back here in the corner. I have to get the new tail housing on it, because this came out of a four-wheel drive Escalade. It had a transmission. It had the end piece was used for front and rear wheel drive, so I had to get a different tail housing for it, which is down here. So what that means, a tail housing and output shaft. So what that means is I got to tear down the whole transmission, and at least to get the main shaft out, and then to put a new output shaft in with a new tail housing. So that will be a little chore. Don't know what I'm going to do with the transmission, if I should go ahead and rebuild it while I've got it taken apart. But I actually, I wish I knew the true history of that transmission. I mean, it came out of a 2004 Cadillac Escalade, but I don't know if it was, what condition. So, all right, I'm gonna press on and we'll see how things look here. Well, my buddy Dan's on his way over. He's gonna give me a hand to try to do a dry fit of the engine into the bay, and hopefully we'll get things lined up enough that we could get the engine mounts set in, probably do a tack weld until I have the transmission ready to go in. So let's see. Hopefully that's going to all go well. we got it figured out. Dan had to go home, but we got the mounts and the location nailed down. We had to cut off about 1.5 inches from this length off of the mounts to fit in. And the mounts are gonna go right about there. I'm gonna keep them flush with the top of the frame, and they line up with the back end of this hole. So that will work out quite well. So we've got this, I'm gonna clean up the frame a little bit to get ready to weld. What I have to do is start using 220 on my welder. So far I've been using 110, but I need to get two adapter connectors for my cable on the welder. So this is gonna take the cable on the welder. That's gotta fit into a let's see. That's gotta go between there. So that's gonna, so welder on the left side here where my hand is, plug into a pigtail with an adapter. So female, and we gotta go with a female to 4-prong. So I only need about 1 foot of cable for that adapter, and then this will go into the wall down to 220 on the main panel. So Dan had a little bit extra cable. I'm gonna cut off what I need, probably about 1 foot or 2, and then so that will give me plenty of extension cable for my welder, and then we can make a better weld on these weight bearing and stressed connections. So that's going to be I got to run down to Home Depot or Lowe's to find those female adapter connectors. And if they don't have them, I'll check online and just order them. So that will certainly make a stronger weld joint. We got our adapter made for our welder. So now the welder can use 220, and I had to make this pigtail. But I have this, see, this line is coming to the welder with a 220 connector. So we've got hot, and that will be ground. Plugging into this connector, hot, ground. And we were only using 3 wires, but this connector is, so we connect to ground, hot. Neutral is not used, so that's open. So we got that made. I went to the big box store and bought these connectors. This is about $14. Dan gave me some spare 3-wire cable. I don't know what the size is. It could be, I don't know what gauge, but it's meant for 220, 30 amps. And then this connector, it's a 4-prong connector, but we only use 3. They had a nice looking connector at the big box store, not the highs, but Lowe's, and that connector was $57. I couldn't believe it. So this was a cheaper version, but it's kind of I made it work. Put it in a box to insulate all the power and a plate. But for some reason, this connector is much more expensive than some of the other 4-prong connectors. And the difference that I could tell was this this little notch going in towards the center. The other 4-prong or 3-prong connectors with that notch coming out away from the center was cheaper. So I have no idea, but I went for this. So, you know, all in all, it was $50 to make the pigtail. So that connects to this 4-prong, which is it's coming from my main panel out to the garage. So I've got a 4-prong there, and that plugs in there. So I made all the connections, and we got the welder set up for 220. And I put a spot weld on each one of these brackets where we have located them. And so we use this hole as reference point. We went to the back of this hole and to the back of that hole. And so I just wanted to test out the welder at 220, and it makes a big difference of the heat. And it's an intense not flame but burn connection to that electrical burn. So I think this is going to work out good for welding these thicker pieces. These are, I think this was 3/16. My box is 3/16. Maybe this is quarter. No, that's 3/16, I think. Anyway, it's going to work out, and the swivel off of the universal coming off of the rack is going to have to again use another universal up here, and then probably universal at the bottom of the steering shaft or steering column. So I think that's going to work. And what I ended up having to do is, these did have to get swapped around. This is the front of the engine, so I had to put this towards the back, and then that will then clear the steering mechanism. So I think that's gonna look good. Well, I think we've got a few things in this video accomplished. We got the front suspension, rear suspension in work. It's not complete, but we're getting there. And so I think we're gonna close out this video, and we'll have more beginning with mounting the engine, transmission, more of the suspension, and there's plenty of stuff to do on this truck. So I appreciate everybody hanging in there with me. And if you don't mind, hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notifications, and then you'll be notified the next time I put out another video. So that's it for today. And thanks again, and we'll see you the next time.